They smiled for the cameras, but behind those palace doors, something cold, calculated, and completely irreversible had already begun, and this time, it wasn't King Charles pulling the strings, it was Prince William quietly dismantling a system that had protected Queen Camilla's family for decades. That's the part no one wants to say out loud. Not the palace, not the press. Because what just happened isn't a minor adjustment, it's a power shift. A silent one. The kind that doesn't explode in public, but echoes in private conversations, tense glances, and decisions made behind closed doors that change everything. And it starts with something that, on the surface, looked almost too quiet to matter. But the silence? That's what makes it dangerous. For nearly 20 years, Annabel Elliot, Camilla's sister, held a position so deeply embedded in royal privilege that people stopped questioning it. Head of Interior Design for the Duchy of Cornwall, a role tied directly to whoever held the title of Prince of Wales. Under King Charles, it wasn't just a job, it was influence, access, and financial stability wrapped in royal approval. Millions flowed through those estates. Grand properties, historic residences, all touched, styled, and controlled under her direction. And yet, whispers always followed. Nepotism, favoritism, a quiet understanding that this wasn't just about talent, it was about proximity to power. But here's where everything changes. Because William is not Charles. The moment the duchy passed into his hands, something shifted. No announcement, no press release, no scandal, at least not publicly, just a decision, clean, final, and devastating in its simplicity. Annabel Elliot was out. No confrontation, no warning, just a quiet removal that sent a message louder than any royal speech ever could. The arrangement your sister had, it ends now. And that's when the ripple effect began. Because this wasn't just about a job. This was about a boundary. A line William had finally decided to draw after years of watching, waiting, and remembering. Insiders didn't miss it. They couldn't. Because when something so deeply rooted disappears overnight, it doesn't go unnoticed. It creates tension. It raises questions. It forces people, especially Camilla, to confront something uncomfortable. What happens when William becomes king? Not someday, soon. And suddenly, the rules that once protected her family don't look so permanent anymore. But this didn't come out of nowhere. No, this story didn't start with Annabel. It started years ago, in pain, in resentment, in a teenage boy watching his world collapse while a woman stood at the center of it. William never forgot what Camilla represented in those years. The affair, the betrayal, the unraveling of his parents' marriage. And then the loss of his mother, Princess Diana, in a tragedy that froze time and left wounds that never fully healed. He was just 15. And in that moment, Camilla wasn't just a figure in the background, she became a symbol of everything that went wrong. People say time heals, but in royal families, time doesn't erase, it buries. And buried things have a way of resurfacing, especially when power changes hands. William and Prince Harry never fully accepted her. That's not speculation, that's pattern, that's behavior, that's history written in small details people often overlook. The distance, the restraint, the lack of warmth. They didn't trust her. Not then, maybe not even now. And those teenage nicknames? Cruella de Vil, Lady Macbeth, the Wicked Witch of the West. People laugh them off as childish rebellion, but look closer. Those weren't just jokes, they were emotional fingerprints, clues to how deeply the resentment ran. Because children don't invent villains without reason. Yes, over time, things appeared to soften. Public appearances became smoother, interactions more controlled. Even moments of shared understanding, especially during difficult times like illness within the family, created the illusion of unity. But here's the thing about royal unity, it's often performance. And beneath that performance, something fragile remained, something conditional, bonded but never fully trusting. That's the difference. And recently, that fragile balance has started to crack again. Because this time, it wasn't just about the past. It wasn't just about Diana. It wasn't even about Harry and Meghan anymore. This time, it got personal. And when things get personal for William, they stop being negotiable. Because what came next didn't just reopen old wounds, it crossed a line that Prince William has never, ever allowed anyone to cross without consequences. And that line has a name, Catherine, Princess of Wales. The public saw smiles, perfectly timed appearances, polished gestures. But behind that carefully constructed image, something far more uncomfortable was unfolding. Something subtle at first, almost easy to dismiss until it wasn't. Reports began to surface in late 2025. Quiet at first, then louder. Tension, awkward interactions. A shift in tone between Queen Camilla and Kate that insiders couldn't ignore anymore. And here's where it gets dangerous. Because in the royal world, tension isn't just about personalities. It's about position, about influence, about who truly holds power when the crown isn't looking. Sources described something unsettling. Camilla, usually composed, showing flashes of irritation, subtle gestures turning sharp, moments where patience wore thin, especially especially when attention drifted toward Kate. Because let's be honest, Kate doesn't just receive attention, she commands it, effortlessly, naturally. And that kind of presence, it changes dynamics whether anyone admits it or not. One moment in particular became impossible to ignore. A public event, cameras rolling, smiles expected, but something slipped. A reaction, a gesture that insiders described as out of line. A visible frustration that wasn't supposed to be seen, and yet there it was. And William noticed. That's the detail that matters. Because William can tolerate history, he can tolerate complicated relationships, he can even tolerate discomfort, but disrespect toward his wife? That's where tolerance ends. His reaction wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it didn't need to be. Because with William, the quieter the response, the more serious it is. And suddenly, those small details started stacking up like evidence. The way he greeted Camilla, 2 quick kisses, skipping the usual formalities, the subtle shift in body language, the distance, the restraint. Tiny things to the public, but inside royal protocol, those are statements, calculated ones. Even the colors at events, the positioning, the attention distribution, it all began to feel like a silent competition. Not spoken, not confirmed, but felt, observed. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The palace noticed, the press noticed, and Camilla, she definitely noticed. Because she's not naive. She understands the system, she survived it, reinvented herself within it. She knows exactly when the temperature in the room changes, and right now, it's dropping. But just as this tension was reaching a boiling point, the story took a turn no one expected. A name from the past, stepping back into the present. Andrew Parker Bowles. At 86, long divorced from Camilla, he should have been a quiet footnote in royal history, a closed chapter. But suddenly, he's back in the spotlight, attending events, representing Princess Anne, standing in rooms that matter. And in the royal world, timing is never coincidence, because his presence does something subtle but powerful. It reminds everyone of Camilla's past, her life before the crown, her connections beyond it. And more importantly, it links her to someone William deeply respects, Princess Anne. That connection complicates everything, because now, this isn't just about tension, it's about overlapping loyalties, conflicting alliances, a web of relationships that refuse to stay neatly separated. And just when you think it couldn't get more strategic, Camilla makes her move. Quiet, legal, almost invisible unless you're paying very close attention. Ray Mill House, a property most people barely think about, but inside this story, it's everything. Bought in 1996, a sanctuary, a place separate from royal life, personal, private, untouchable, until now, because suddenly ownership shifts, not publicly, not dramatically, but through power of attorney, transferred into the hands of her children, Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopes, through legal representatives. And the timing? That's what makes it explosive. On paper, it looks like estate planning, sensible, expected. She's 78. King Charles III is battling cancer. These things happen, but look deeper, and a different picture starts to form, because this isn't just about age. This is about anticipation. What happens when Charles is gone? What happens when William becomes king? Suddenly, Ray Mill House isn't just a property, it's a fallback, a safe zone, a controlled space outside the reach of a future monarchy that may not be as accommodating or as forgiving. By transferring it now, Camilla isn't just planning for the future, she's protecting herself from it. That's strategy, that's awareness, that's someone who sees what's coming and is preparing before it arrives. Because William's vision is becoming clearer with every move he makes. A streamlined monarchy, fewer privileges, tighter control, and most importantly, no automatic benefits for those who aren't directly in the bloodline. That means something critical. Camilla's family, no guarantees, no more quiet roles, no more unspoken arrangements, no more inherited influence just because of proximity to the crown. Everything becomes conditional. Everything becomes earned or removed. And here's where it all collides. Because to William, this isn't just policy, it's personal. It's about protecting the institution, protecting his father, protecting his wife, and maybe in some unspoken way, protecting the memory of Diana. But to Camilla, it feels like something else. A slow tightening, a narrowing of space, a future where her role exists, but only within limits defined by someone who never fully trusted her to begin with. Insiders are already calling it what it is. A point of no return. Not a disagreement, not a temporary tension, a shift. Structural, permanent. The kind that doesn't reverse, it only moves forward. Because look at the pattern. The sister removed, the protocol shifts, the visible distance, the strategic property transfer, the resurfacing of old connections, the tightening control over finances. These aren't isolated events, they're pieces. And when you connect them, a bigger picture emerges. One where Prince William isn't just preparing to be king, he's already acting like one. And in that future, Queen Camilla still has a place, but not the same place, not the same power, not the same freedom. Because the boy who once watched everything fall apart is now the man deciding deciding what stays and what gets quietly erased. The palace will keep smiling. The appearances will continue. The illusion will hold for now. But behind those doors, decisions are being made. Positions are shifting. And something tells you this story isn't even close to over.